And welcome to TechNow. This is the web series for ServiceNow admins, developers, and builders of all skill levels on a wide variety of ServiceNow topics. Our topic today is one of my favorites. I love it when we get to do this twice a year. This is the Paris platform features. And as part of the early access program, you have the exclusive invitation to join us live today. Unless, of course, you're watching this recorded later. Well, bless you then. Let's get on with it. My name is Chuck Tomasi. I'm a senior developer evangelist at ServiceNow. I was a customer for a couple of years, and I've been with ServiceNow for over 10 years as we record this today. Started in 2010 in a number of technical roles, usually around custom applications and integrations, do a number of other video series that I invite you to watch. Let's get on with it. Over to Kreg Steppe, our lead drummer on the band.
That's right. What? I'm like the Ringo in this band? Oh, okay. I'm the program manager for Cloud Labs, and I'm in charge of all the infrastructure for our training courses. And you've probably seen like Now Learning. I work on the back end of that. Specialize in cloud automation as well as orchestration. I've done a little bit of everything at ServiceNow at this point. Started in 2014 and been the co-host with TechNow since 2016. I love podcasting, photography, and Linux. I use it day in and day out. So on over to Jeremy.
Hey folks, Jeremy Duncan here, platform architect here at ServiceNow on the solution innovation team. I've got 16 years experience in the IT space. Started my ServiceNow journey as a customer back before Aspen, and have not looked back since. Spent time as a customer, about 5 years, 3 years in the consulting world, and the last year here at ServiceNow. Was a speaker at Knowledge 13, and just a little bit of personal information about myself. Just fun fact, I spent 7 years as a reserve police officer here in the city of Hendersonville. So during the day, get to have my job at ServiceNow, and at night and on the weekends, get to fight crime, take people to jail. So that's a little bit about myself, and we'll move on over to the agenda. Chuck, am I covering the agenda?
You are. This is all you. You're the bassist.
Cool, all right. I'm the bassist. I thought I might be on keytar, but that's cool. I'll take a bass. That's cool too. So today's agenda, we are going to talk about the platform updates and new features in Paris. If you've paid attention to our last releases, we've multiple hundred different enhancements that come along with new releases. So check out what's coming in Paris. A lot of really cool things. And then today we'll have some time for Q&A. And then if we can't get to those questions during the session, you can check those out at the link below, the bit.ly link below. All right. So just a couple of things we want to share with you before we get started. ServiceNow being committed to supporting the UN COVID-19 Response Recovery Fund. We would love to hear from you to help make a difference in the developer space. So we want you to share how you're shaping the developer experience around COVID-19. Share your app ideas, and ServiceNow will donate $50 for every application that you share. So check out that bit.ly link below to learn more and share and help shape the world that we live in, the new world that we live in. And just a quick plug for a new developer podcast that we're launching or launched this month, July 2020. Our very own Chuck Tomasi will be kicking off this podcast called Breakpoint. So get on board to hear Chuck chat with our ServiceNow product teams and customers to bring you their stories. The product managers and developers are going to share tips and tricks to help you understand how to get the most out of your platform developer features. And our customers will share their stories about what they built, challenges that they've had, and provide candid feedback about the platform. So find Breakpoint on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, radio.com, or wherever you find your podcasts. And moving it right back along. Just a quick plug on developer. There are many different places you can find features and enhancements and things, but one of those being developer.servicenow.com. You can grab your own developer instance, get early access to releases like Paris we're talking about today. You can get free learning plans. The list goes on. So developer.servicenow.com, keep that in your tool belt along with things like Share, docs. There are all kinds of ServiceNow provided sites, the community. It's all out there. It's all there to help you as you grow in your developer experiences. All right, moving right back along to Chuck.
All right. Thank you very much, Jeremy. We have a lot to cover today, as we do with almost every release. This is Paris. Early access came out on July 23rd. General availability will be in September, and we'll have our big market launch and hoopla coming in October. So exclusive viewership, because if you missed this, you're going to have to wait until it's all public. So thank you very much for joining us today. I want to march right on with a quick disclaimer. Just to set the scope of this presentation is about the Now platform features in the Paris release. It doesn't cover specific apps and topics to ITSM, customer service, ITOM, ITBM, all that other stuff. There are other presentations that will be made for those. So keep your eye out if you've got more specific things that you want to look for in those. Also remember that some of the features covered here, like IntegrationHub, are sold separately and are priced separately as well. So you'll want to talk with your account team if you have questions on pricing. We will do our best to point those out as we go, but sometimes I get really excited about the feature and I forget to mention the business end of things. So if you've got questions about pricing, certainly take that up with your account team. For more information about that, no, I already said that. Also keep in mind that this is being recorded as part of Paris Early Access, as I mentioned. So features presented here may change. This is part of early access. I'll say it's pretty locked down at this point, but hashtag safe harbor, hashtag safe harbor, hashtag safe harbor. There, I'm covered. With that out of the way, let's get started with our first feature. And I think I'm taking these mostly alphabetically, so you'll kind of get the idea as we go. Automated Test Framework. For those of you who don't know, it's our built-in test framework to allow you to build reusable tests to speed upgrades and improve quality of your configuration releases. So in Paris, we've added versioning to the tests. Now, test designers really shouldn't notice much of the versioning changes, unless, of course, they do a show XML on something, but they're probably not likely to do that. They might notice the behavioral differences when comparing tests from different versions. So what we wanted to do is kind of like build flows and workflows. We've got different versions in there. Tests now have that. Older tests really didn't support indexing indexing properly, but the newer tests do, or like web component support. So you will be able to say this test, it supports this version. It only makes sense. You'll see it if you do a show XML. There will be a version tag in there. In the older releases, it won't. So as a test designer, you may want to update older tests to run on the newer versions and take advantage of that. And as I hinted at in that previous slide, we've improved the indexing. So let's say you've got a page like this with 5 buttons on it. Previously, there was a problem with that. It would, if you said, go test the button, and it would go, I'm testing the button, it would pull up some random button because it was all the same type and class. So here we've added an order to that, and you can see I think they've actually got different numbers in them when you look at the actual test. We've added indexing to help isolate which ones are being tested, and you test the right ones. One of those, hey, that was annoying. Now it's no longer annoying. We've also improved the page inspector to, it's been enhanced with a number of new things. More page types to help you get places you need to test. Better messages when you try to do something that you can't, like drag the little index thing right into the middle. And it goes, no, you can't do that. Before it would just go, well, yoink, it takes it away and you can't do that. So if you try to drop the crosshair on a form, like not on a field, but on a form, or an iframe content that's pointing to another site, you're going to be told about it. So nice new things in ATF. Moving from ATF to authentication, Paris introduces support for 2 things that I'm really excited about. OpenID as an SSO. So if you want to authenticate against Google or Facebook or one of these larger things, you've seen these on a lot of other sites. There's a badge that shows up. we've now made that a configurable option. Of course, you've got to register with that other service and get the key, all that kind of stuff. So Google, Facebook, and Twitter, you can use those as your authentication provider. I've got an application in the works that I am really looking forward to plugging that in. We've also added an easy to configure external user registration process, including things like terms and condition and reCAPTCHA and some other features. Having built something like this in the past on Service Portal, I can tell you this is nice, and you can make multiples of them for different portals. So you could have customers registering on one and employees registering on the other, or different citizens. You make up your own rules, but very, very handy and very easy to use as opposed to building your own. Self-registration, not a whole lot of fun. All right, moving on to the core platform. We've got a couple of things in here that I want to talk about. For those cases where you need to run a job, okay, this is on scheduled jobs, we've added a business calendar offset. So let's say you need to run something 6 hours before your quarter starts, or 1 hour after the week is over. Maybe as a preparation for month-end close, or something you do right after your quarterly reviews. You can add that offset into the calendar. Very handy. Just some new fields on there that you might want to know about. 2 days after this and 3 days after that. We've also added, this is something I wish I had when I was a customer, the performance dashboards. You're all familiar with, how busy they are and what are they doing. Well, the performance dashboard now displays stats for the entire instance, and you can turn on and off specific nodes, similar to how you have live widgets on other reports when you're doing a dashboard. You could do that. So much, much more comprehensible than it used to be. Our robust transform engine for robust imports allows you to do one import and have multiple target tables. Again, where was this when I was a customer? I love this thing. Instead of one spreadsheet in and one target table out. Nope, you can do this with multiple targets. Well, RTE, as you may hear it called, I think it's actually robust import. Oh, someone help me out if you remember what the actual... I forgot. This was like an internal name once upon a time, and it sort of stuck with me. But it was introduced in Orlando, which is why I don't have the full name lock on. It only supported flat JSON structures in Orlando. Well, in Paris, of course, we now do nested structures like the one you see on the right. And you can add wildcards on the ETL, which is your transform layer. You can add those to the entity fields, allowing for more flexibility and, of course, less scripting. So you can pull things right out of JSON, almost like mapping in JavaScript, which is really kind of fun. All right, another core platform. We've got scope data administration. So similar to the way you have scoped app administration, where you assign people to be the HR admin and the regular admins can't see what's in the HR app. This is subtle but important from a security perspective. An application field has been added to the connections and credentials table to secure the data to scoped app domains. For example, you don't want your regular admins to have access to your Workday connection information in the HR app. So think of it that way. Looking at domain separation, those of you who are managed service providers and do domain separations will appreciate this. Domain separation, it's been around for a very long time. I don't even remember how long. 2006, 7, 8. It's an early thing. It's changed a little bit along the ways, and it's used for managed service providers to host multiple customers on a single instance. Generally, our enterprise or commercial customers won't turn this on. But the domain separated application properties feature is similar to system properties, but it allows you to define, almost like dictionary overrides, it allows you to define different values for different domains for the same app property. So a new class called Glide Application Property has been created to get and set values in your JavaScript. Another domain separation feature is that we have domain iterator for script jobs. So scoped admin users will be able to configure scheduled jobs to run in multiple domains, and the script is run over the records indicated in the domain source table list. So you've got your standard table and filter thing. Okay. We haven't even got to the new shiny stuff. This is all improvements. And I've seen some of this stuff on my personal developer instance because I upgraded to Paris last Thursday evening, and I've already taken advantage of this one. The actions on your flows are no longer going to be in this outline format. So Flow Designer, let me back up just a second. Flow Designer, if you haven't heard of it, it's our natural language way of quickly building business logic with little or no coding involved. Paris has several new enhancements. We've cleaned up the action numbers, as you can see here, from deep nested actions. I mean, I had some that were 6 and 7 levels deep. You go into an if and a for each, and then another if, and it gets crazy. So you don't have anything like 3.2.1.3.1. Try and remember that. It's just number 8 now. So much easier to do. Flow Designer, as you upgrade, it will attempt to remap all of your inline script binding. So if you've got the little FX icon turned on and you're doing some inline scripts, it will do its best to do that. If you have an extremely sensitive flow and you'd like to do it yourself, just simply click the cancel button when it says, I'd like to upgrade this in the modal. If that's the case, then we strongly suggest you copy the flow so that you have a backup you can revert to and reference if you need it. And then you can modify the current one, or modify that backup or refer back to it. Typical backup stuff. There are 2 types of people in this world, those who have lost data and those who will. I learned that early on in my IT career. Another one that I have already used and I absolutely love is this duplicate action icon. It's right up there with the comment and the trash can as you're looking at the details of an action. Actually, you don't even need to look at the details. It'll just appear as you hover over it. So great time saver when you have an action. This is a very simple one with a log statement and a data pill in it. But when I click that, I'm going to get an exact copy of that log statement with the data pill in it. So think about those times when you do an update record action and you've got 17 fields to fill in, and then it shows up later in your flow. Like, oh, this is such a pain. Not anymore. Click, modify, done. So, such a nice time saver. Duplicate action. Look for that one. I've already been using it and enjoying it. All right, a little bit about the Flow Designer APIs. We've got two notes to note. That was redundant. 2 things to note if you're using the FlowScript API. So the Flow API A has been updated. The old API will continue to work, but we encourage you to use the new API structure and methods. So here's a couple of examples, including one with domain separation, as you can see. The structure has changed where it used to just say execute subflow or start subflow, which I could never keep straight whether that was synchronous or asynchronous. Now we've got things like in background. That's pretty easy to tell where it is. So you can chain these methods together, as you see on the left. Domain separation, we just added like in domain in there. And then on the bottom, you see that FlowScript API. That's used within the flow. So these other ones are used for UI actions, business rules, wherever you want to call it, outside of the flow to say, go start this flow, go run this flow, go cancel this flow, that kind of thing. Flow script API is used inside the script, and you can use it to get the context ID of the currently running script. The currently running flow. Maybe handy when you've got a flow calling a subflow, calling another subflow. What level am I on? Where am I? You can tell that. So currently the only method I know of is get context ID. Let's move on to another Flow Designer. Ghost actions. This one's always fun. Have you ever been in your dev environment and everything's working fine, and then you promote your flow and you forget that you used a spoke or custom actions from another scope that you forgot to modify? And in production, you can't even open the flow? Well, that's the way it used to be. Prior to Paris, you couldn't even open the flow to figure out what was wrong. Now we've put in these placeholders, ghost actions we call them. So this will let you, it will first alert you and say, hey, you've got some actions on here that aren't on this instance. What would you like to do? Well, you go, oh, I forgot my LinkedIn spoke, or I forgot my SAP data spoke. Whatever it is that you need to bring in to do that, you can do that, or you can delete them, or you can do whatever you need to get this thing up and running again. So now you can edit flows. Again, one of those, that was massively annoying. Not anymore. So we should call Paris the not massively annoying release. I don't know. They'll probably have to get through marketing first.
I was say let's pass on that.
All right. There's a couple of other things. The make a decision flow. If you've used decision tables and done this branching, I think I showed this on a live stream recently. Very handy for breaking things out, like a case statement or a switch statement in scripting. It automatically breaks it out. Well, now we've got the ability to turn those branches on and off. I had one where it had 6 different branches, and every one of them was updating slightly different based on the answer record. Well, I didn't need 7 branches to all say update record, update record, update record, update record. I really just need one that says, go look up the answer for me, and I'll use that data. You can turn off the branches to collapse that down. But if you turn those off, the branch data, if you had something under each branch, it's now gone. So you can't get it back. Use this cautiously. Make sure you know what you're doing. And you can use the data pills from the answer record and say, you know what? The answer record's got what I need. I'm just going to update that record once with that. So if you choose run all decisions that match, it will return an array of records table. So you probably want to go through a for each or something like that to get what you need. Any other notes? I already told you about the turning it off, turning it back on again. Stuff is gone. But these are very handy. Let's get to our next feature. Multi-row variable set support has been added. So when you go to your catalog item and you've got a multi-row variable set, you import the variable just like before. It will show up as this complex object that you see there. So those of you who use them, and I know there are many of you, very lovely feature. We can now use those in Flow Designer. Hip, hip, and hooray. We've also added the ability, I showed this on yesterday's live stream, you can run as the system user, which, as most glide record operations, ignores a lot of the ACLs and goes through what it needs to go through. But if you run it as the user who initiates the session, you can add on specific roles and say, you know what, this is able tutor, but they need the ITIL role to do this flow and run it successfully. So you can grant just enough permissions for them to do what they need to do for that particular run of the flow without assigning it to them permanently. So kind of a nice feature in terms of security. We've added a number of actions, send SMS action, nothing surprising here. If you've used the email action, then this will look very familiar. It's just sending to an SMS. I'm wondering if the feature that I also showed yesterday is in here. I can't remember if it is or not. We've got the ability to submit a catalog request action. You're like, when would submit a catalog item be handy? Well, think about this. You're doing your HR onboarding. And during the onboarding process, you can initiate a request on behalf of the new hire for a laptop, for example, as part of the flow. Okay, pretty nice. You don't have to manually create this through the cart API and whatnot and trigger another flow. This is all taken care of for you. Or event management. If those are ITOM happy people, if an incoming alert comes in from, say, a monitoring tool regarding a faulty disk, you could automatically order and deliver that to the location of the assigned to user. So very cool stuff. We've also, I like this one, both in the Flow API, or excuse me, in the Flow API and from the menu, give you a use case. As a customer, you may have multiple accounts on the same service that you want to do your integration with and be able to communicate with them all at the same time. As an example, you want to copy files from your IT box account to your HR box account. Okay, that might be in the same flow, same integration spokes. You can now use multiple connections, multiple credentials to do that in the same flow. Very cool. So Paris allows you to do that. And you can see there's a script API where you just send it a list of stuff to use. We've also added one that I wish I had a couple of weeks ago. I had to build my own for this one. Custom steps in the action designer that do update multiple and delete multiple. Those of you who've done the glide record methods will recognize this. It uses the exact same thing behind the scenes, update multiple and delete multiple. So you can see those, very easy to use. It's a step. It's not It's not an action itself. So if you want to use this, you need to use the action. I use it as a cleanup. So just to make sure my temporary log table is clean before I run my flow, I run an action that deletes all the records. And I really don't care about them. That way, when I walk in the next morning and say, did it run last night? It goes, no, because you still don't have any. I went, uh-oh, this isn't good. Or, yes, it ran. I have 547 log records. That's great. Okay. We've also come up with something that we recognized is going to be a problem as we add more actions, add more spokes to Flow Designer. So prior to Paris, a user with admin or Flow Designer would see all of Flow Designer's actions, all the integration hub spokes they've installed, and from the user's perspective, it really wasn't the greatest experience because they're hunting around or using that search a lot. So consider someone coming in with less experience, like your HR payroll agent. They're authoring flows, and they really only want to see the actions that are relevant to the HR payroll cases and that flow. So you can now configure almost like user criteria. This is user access for the flow menu. You won't overload these people. You can set specifically to their location, their role, their a number of criteria that you could say only show these people this much. So if you can see from that example, there's like able tutor or whoever I logged in as has been assigned to one of these roles, and that role has been filtered. They're not going to see everything they don't need to see. So choose that accordingly. Very nice. As far as integration authentication, we've added another tab. You can kind of see it in that background image. I got three blowouts on there, but there's a connections tab now. So in Flow Designer, you can create new credentials and connections without leaving Flow. Very nice. I love this. And you can also add child aliases easily and manage your credentials a whole lot easier right from this dashboard, which is kind of where it should be anyway. But now we've got a new easy way to do it within Flow.
That is very nice.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to using that real soon because I'm doing a combined application with the developer advocates. And we've got to be connecting to the same service, and we need to be able to use different aliases. And I'm using an API key; they're using OAuth. That'll be fun. Leave that for another time. Integration Hub, you can now use your data streams. I've built some of these. These are a blast. I just have so much fun with data streams. I don't know why. It just like, go give me a whole bunch of stuff, and don't stop until you've got it, and then run this for each over every record. It's a lot of fun. So Integration Hub mentioned earlier is built on Flow Designer to give you the ability to easily exchange information and interact with other systems and services. So in Paris, we've added several things. You can now use a data stream as a data source. Data streams, as I mentioned, make it easier to get large volumes, particularly paginated data. Okay? It's most effective when you say, here's the pagination schema, and you could say, I'm looking for this token. Anyway, with REST or SOAP, you can do that. Successful execution of a data stream action returns a stream of complex objects that will be consumed by the data source into the import table. So based on the data source configuration, these complex objects can be either flattened out into the import table or serialized completely as a JSON data into a single column. So in Paris, one thing to point out on the very bottom of that, you do need to add a pre-import script. I don't think I've ever done this before. Totally forgot it was a feature because I use it so rarely. But the pre-import script has to have that gs.getSession put client data in there. So we'll have the slides available for you later, or it's on the release notes or the data source thing where you can set it to a data stream. It will be in the documentation as well. We have a link for that on the presentation if you're watching this live.
Yeah, so maybe we can address this later, but somebody said that they just went live with ServiceNow this month with New York, and they want to upgrade to Paris. Any recommendations or advice for a customer with their first upgrade?
The sooner the better. If you're on New York,
Yeah.
you're already a year old and you haven't made that many changes and you don't have that much data to migrate. So this is a great time to do it. This is the best time in your whole ServiceNow career to do an upgrade.
Yeah. So yeah, that's absolutely right. And does the run with roles in Flow Designer impact licensing? Adding the ITIL role temporarily to a non-ITIL user. Do you know that?
Not that I know. Great question for the account team. I suspect not, because it's only a temporary entitlement to run that flow. It's not. And when we do audits, we don't know who ran that flow. But if
it's assigned to a user, that's a different thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
If that role is, yeah. So.
All right, let's move on, because I think we're going to have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end as well. Back to IntegrationHub. Probably been staring at the slide going, what? Well, if you've done data streams in the past, we now have the ability to create dynamic objects on the outputs. We didn't have this in previous releases. So dynamic objects, very handy for doing introspection to another system and saying, hey, I need to get this particular configuration. We can do that. It's more of a runtime-based approach to define the object schema of the data stream action output. So I know that was a mouthful of words. If you know about dynamic inputs and dynamic outputs, you go, hey, cool, now I can use them there too. All right. Also on the data stream, we've added support for outputs in the script parser. Didn't have this before. As I built out a handful of data streams in the last couple of months, I didn't notice this as a particular lacking feature, but I'm sure somebody did that said, we got to have this. So you now have you now have access to action inputs and step outputs inside the script parser to adopt their parsing logic based on the configuration of the action and the results returned by the API. As in many other places in Flow Designer and IntegrationHub, the FD data object has been added to the script parser's inputs. Don't think you can quite see it there. No, you can't. Just like inputs and outputs, we now have FD data that you can get at. All right, sorry for the eye chart on this one, but that's as tight as I could make this without going nuts and making some callouts. But this is a JSON parser in IntegrationHub. We used this last week on Live Coding Happy Hour. If you want to see that, Brad Tilton was able to take inputs from his digital thermometer and run it through the JSON parser and get a complex object out of that. Looks and works very similar to the XML parser that we've had for a while. It's a great way to do low-code or no-code parsing to quickly convert any JSON payload into a dot-walkable Flow Designer data pill without the need of script. So an example that I use aside from Brad's digital thermometer is your incoming response body from other REST APIs. Speaking of JSON and XML, we have a payload builder API available in script. So if you were doing this and returning an object out of a subflow, for example, you could build a payload, or you want to make it an input. So another JavaScript API for you, the JSON streaming builder and XML streaming builder that you see there. Build those payloads with your new scriptable API, and you can also use an attachment as a source of a payload. Very cool. You can see, I think it's on there with attachments. So you can add those on. A lot of people ask for that when doing integrations. As far as integration security, we now have the ability to do kind of like a poor man's firewall, a simple firewall. It's we've added this outbound IP access controls. So you can see in this example that I've blocked Spotify. The description says Spotify with a CIDR notation, but I've put it in as the range of those addresses for that. So if anybody tries to do an integration with Spotify on this instance, it will say, nope, sorry, can't do it. It's blocked IP address. So just another one of those things that I don't know who's been doing crazy integrations to places they shouldn't, but now you can do that.
See that there's a enforce on mid server as well, which is good.
Right. No going around. Yeah. Okay. The GraphQL, some of you may know about this from other platforms, but we've added a GraphQL API. It allows for quick creation of models that represent the data that can be directly used in lightweight client-side code. Now, I'm no GraphQL expert yet. Hope to do that one day. And we will be doing some demonstrations on that in the upcoming weeks and months as we go through the Paris features. But the most common use case I've seen for this is building Now Experience components. Quick plug, we are doing a Now Experience component building TechNow on August 18th with Wolfgang Wiedemeyer. I always want to say that with a German accent, but he doesn't, so I won't. Yeah. Join us for that. There is a link for those of you looking live. Go into the resources panel. You can sign up for that today. We've got the registration open for that already, and I will be socializing that more as we go on. So I don't know if we'll be getting deep into GraphQL, but still working on the details of that webinar. Hope you can join us for that. GraphQL is available, defining resources and renderers and all that good stuff that I have yet to fully appreciate. Okay, on the back end, archiving has been around for a long time. We've now turned it into a producer-consumer, similar to what we have for instance data replication, which is coming up in December, which you may have seen before. This allows for higher throughput and better performance is really why we did this. It also makes it easier to configure, in my opinion. We've also added support for restoring related records and creating rules when to auto re-archive those records, because when you pull something out of archive, you want to make sure that it gets back into archive at some point. Auto re-archive and or destroy them. You may want to say, yeah, I pulled these out of archive, but destroy the record that's already here. Don't put what I've got already back in. Metric Base is our time series database that's been out for a while. Great for gathering sensor data like temperature readings over the last year. Metric Base has been enhanced in Paris to enable you to push data to Metric Base without synchronizing glide record sysids to the external systems. That used to be the unique identifier that would link those two, correlate, coalesce, whatever you want to call it. This is really useful when you're synchronizing our sysids. It might be expensive and or impossible to do that. So an example would be a refrigeration unit needs to send a temperature data to Metric Base. We can use the refrigeration unit name or serial number or MAC address or whatever is in that payload that identifies that particular one to make that happen. Also on the back end, I mentioned instance data replication. It's a great way to synchronize specific records between ServiceNow instances. It was introduced back in New York. We already mentioned that. So it's been around for about a year. And in Paris, we introduced bidirectional sync. One checkbox. Oh, this is so much easier to configure. Kreg will be talking about that in December on TechNow. You can also do remote consumers and discrete sets. Instead of just, what you had to do before is set up a producer and a consumer set manually on each end. So your consumer on the other side would then turn into the producer and replicate data back. This is now just a checkbox to do all that for you. And you can see from this image that you've got a few extra related lists on both the producer and the consumer. So it's much easier to configure and good information. I already talked, I mentioned discrete sets. This allows you to do IDR with like specific consumer based, rather than saying, hey, I'm going to make my incident table available to anyone who wants to subscribe to it. You could say, I want to make the incident table with these specific filters so that customer A only gets customer A's data. I can see this very handy in like a domain separated environment, but I'm not sure who you're replicating to in that case, but I'll let you go on that one with your own imagination. Okay, on from instance to inbound, we have inbound integration. Try that again. For those customers looking at adding some filtering capabilities to email, Paris introduces inbound and outbound email address filters. You create a filter record, like the one at the bottom of the screen, to define the rules. Then you apply them to a filter record, They're kind of like ACLs in the way that if an address is allowed and blocked, it's going to be allowed. So Think about that. If you don't want anybody sending anything to whitehouse.gov, you can block it. Or receiving anything from whitehouse.gov, you can block that as well. All right, explicit rules. There's an explicit rules plugin that you turn on, and you get the roles SNC internal and SNC external. Been around for a little while. We've enhanced it with a couple of new features. The internal user blacklist is a system property that identifies specific table classes to apply the SNC external rule on creation. So what was happening is users without the SNC internal or external roles were automatically assigned the internal rule by default. And what we found is some of our CSM customers were importing users through file import, doing a spreadsheet import, and it was defaulting incorrectly. It's like, hey, I'm importing all my customers. Why are they being identified as internal users? They should be external. So now we have a property that automatically defaults to those CSM tables and will apply SNC external correctly. However, note, you customers cannot change this property directly. You must contact customer support because it could impact CSM, and we don't want to have that. We've also updated to include mutual exclusion. So a customer cannot be, or a user on the system, I should say, cannot be both internal and external. That doesn't make sense. And it will stop you if you try to add them to groups and say, no, this group has external and you've already been identified as internal, so you're not going to inherit this role. I'm going to stop you. You can't shoot yourself in the foot and do stupid things, because we don't want that. And that could prevent security problems down the road. Okay, new shiny object. This is one of the cool things. We are going to take 2 episodes of TechNow in October and November, talk to one of our product managers who knows way more than this than I do, and tell you about it. So let me tell you the quick and dirty version for July 2020. Process Automation Designer. It's a builder experience for creating enterprise workflows, automating on the workflow. I say, wait a minute, don't we already have that? We've already got Flow Designer. Hang on. Okay, before you go hit the panic button and start asking Q&A questions, this provides business process owners an experience to digitize, and here's the key part, visualize, I'll get to that in a second, and manage end-to-end workflows across business services, enabling the agents to see that workflow in a simplified task-oriented view. That's something that the agents can't do right now in Flow Designer, although Flow Designer works with Process Automation Designer. It's like an engine underneath that you can connect in. So your process may include manual tasks. I need somebody to update this record. It may include flow tasks. It may include a number of things that can be put into these lanes, and then somebody can come along later and say, where are we on that process? I just talked to a friend of mine whom I've known for over 40 years, and he has a great use case for this. He asked specifically about this. He said, does ServiceNow have anything like that? I said, yes, we just came out with it in Paris, and I'm going to be talking to him more about that. So if this is a no and low code thing, you're asking, the developers in the audience are asking, what's in it for me? Well, you are the brains behind creating new flows, new actions that are the components to these larger activities, the process that people build in Process Automation Designer. So you get not only, and you get to build those trickier components, but you get to build the cross-departmental workflows fast. Everything that the no-coders get, you get too. It's not like an either or. It's you get to all build fast. So we'll have more on this. Let me first jump over to the visualization part. And again, tiny screen. I know you'll see a little bit more of this in an upcoming slide. Playbook is the visual experience for Process Automation Designer stages and steps in Agent Workspace. So keep an eye out for both Process Automation Designer and Playbook discussion as we go forward in October and November on TechNow. Checking the clock. I'm going to have to pick up the pace just a little bit here. I've got many, many more slides to go, but I think the last several will go fast. Service portal, we've added a portal analyzer. So it's logging where people go, list of pages, page level usage. So you could do some nice reporting on that. Source control. Now, I expect to hear a round of applause for this one. We now have support for global apps. When you go into the source control, when you have a global app, you have a source control menu. You didn't have that before. And you claim the files using this add existing files. Say, I want that incident business rule. Put that in there. So you activate a property. You have to still do this if you haven't already. Activate a property to support global apps in Studio. That's documented. Perfectly fine. You create a new global app. So you go through Studio and say, I want to create this. And it'll say scope or global. You say global. You claim the files with that menu option at the top. And then you can connect to a GitHub repo and move them in and out. Now, even more fun on source control, one of my favorites that I'm really looking forward to, delta loading. In Paris, gone are the days where switching branches or loading something will destroy your application and the data and the tables and all that other stuff. We can now do this more intelligently, as we should have like 4 years ago, but it's finally nice to be able to do this. So it's now savvy enough to do delta loading. This saves time. I really want to get one of my instances updated because it's taking a really long time to do some of the source control things because it's a big application with lots of data. The script debugger has been enhanced to include a console log, a console debugger. You can actually do server-side code in this window. Check the conditions, the expressions, do a little scripting. You can see an example there to say, hey, what is the value of user? It is that sysID. What is value empty? No. Do that kind of stuff. It's right at the bottom. Bring that up in the source control console, or excuse me, in the script debugger. I'm not sure why my brain was still on source control. I must be excited about that. Upgrades, very important. Those of you who are thinking about upgrades or doing these in the future, something we all deal with, of course. Here's the scenario. You just upgraded to Paris. You reviewed all the skip changes and updated the skipped records. Those changes are now captured. This is the good part. Those changes are now captured in update sets. So when you bring that update set over to test, prod, etc., post upgrade, those same skipped records are affected respectively. So your prod instance doesn't go, you've got 1,800 things to inspect here. Like, no, I already did that in dev. Here's the update set to prove it. So you can get that and bring it over. We will also be talking about the upgrade center in September's TechNow, lining that up with the appropriate people, including the upgrade center. So again, we want to make sure that you get the value out of the platform that you intend to. So we're making this easier. You can preview your upgrade, much like you could preview update sets before. You can review the upgrade when it's completed, and you can manage those skips with a VTB. So easier, faster. Let's get you onto Paris and beyond as quickly as possible. All right. Workspace has a number of enhancements to it. If you're a Workspace user, I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. We've added an email client for the agents. Should look very familiar with picking and choosing and quick messages, all that kind of stuff. The activity stream has been enhanced. We've taken out a problem with double scroll bars. We now have single scroll bars. So it's like window in a window kind of thing that you've seen. We've added the ability to do attachments and thumbnails to the attachments, and you can do filters by the conversation. We've added the condition builder. This is a subtle one, but something you might want to know about. The condition builder previously was an Angular thing inside of the agent workspace web components. Not terrifically exciting, but something to note. For domain-separated customers, we've made it easier for the agents to create new tickets with this interstitial form. So when they say, I need to create a new incident, it first says, what domain? In the standard UI, the platform UI that some people call it, you would first have to remember to pick your domain, then create the incident, because you could be in the wrong one. It was too easy to get things in the wrong domain. This makes it less likely to confuse and get things in the wrong domain. So we've got that, which is exciting. Lots of new form controls. Tiny MCE icons can be ordered and new field types to go around, date, time, picker, range enhancements, lots of good stuff. Resizable columns in Workspace, little icons to tell you when there's notifications, collapsible or grouped UI actions, so you can make a drop-down list of UI actions, form header enhancements, so you can put an icon up there. Lots of great stuff that's going on. There's like 8 different features in that one picture. As far as lists, we've got kind of almost real live lists. That would not be prudent to do in the agent workspace for performance reasons, but we can show you a badge that says, hey, one thing has been changed, and when you click the refresh, it will highlight the field on that record that has been changed. We also have column resizing. This has been asked for forever in the standard UI, but not practical because of the way that the platform was built. Now that we're on this new experience, we can do that. Whew, made it. Can take another breath. So my takeaway actions for
Breathe
you,
again. Yeah.
Go sign up for, get your new PDI, explore what's new in Paris, and of course, plan your organization's stuff carefully. References to all this can be found on Docs community. Go over, get a personal developer instance. We've got lots of other TechNows. And if you're watching this later, you can go back and watch the ones that I forward referenced. Do that timey-wimey thing. Lots of different episodes. Let's get on with the Q&A. What have we got, gentlemen?
Flow Designer rollback.
Flow Designer rollback. Sorry. Not yet. That's my short answer. It is on the radar. I know the product manager is looking at that very closely. It's been requested. So if you see it in the idea portal on the community, upvote it. That's my suggestion.
Yep, there's a high ticket out there as well, so go check it out. Yeah. What'd you have, Kreg?
Well, I had several people still asking about upgrades, but you saw the upgrade center, which would help out, but that's going forward, I guess, from Paris. Lots of Flow Designer questions. I didn't see anything that's specific that stuck out, but
so as far as upgrades, one of the answers I've been giving, just keep in mind with your account team, you've got Health Scan to help you identify some of your technical debts, some of the things that you may need to consider before you upgrade. And also there's a customer success playbook out there, provided a link to that. Just do a Google search on upgrade ServiceNow. You'll see the customer success playbook. Lots of cool stuff out there to help you prepare for those upgrades.
And where's the customer success center? You remember the short URL?
I'm going to fail the test.
ServiceNow.com/success.
Success.
I was testing you, Jeremy. I wasn't going to answer.
Right. We've only been spouting that thing in every episode for the last 2 years.
I know, right? That's right.
What else we got?
There was a lot of questions about the IDR, I guess, about e-bonding and trying to bind 2 instances together. I'm sorry, I kind of lost the question. It's in here somewhere. I'm sorry, I missed it.
No, that's all right.
But that's okay, because we will be answering these questions afterwards and get back to you in the community. So.
I use IDR in place of many cases where I would want to clone or manually export XML and import XML every few weeks, which is annoying when you've got 50,000 records because it takes a long time. It's a big process. You have to change properties, blah, blah, blah. Once you link these together with IDR, it's a configurable sync mechanism, either unidirectional or bidirectional. Great for instance-to-instance migration. If I want my, say people are opening issues on my particular app in prod, I can replicate that to dev so I can see them. I could make it bidirectional so that updates go one way or the other. Or I could tell my people, hey, only update these in prod. I can take my production data and keep that in my dev instance, so I'm actually using up-to-date information, not, oh, this hasn't been updated in 6 months, I better do a clone. Everybody back out. It's a way to relieve some of that pressure of we need to do a clone. You can keep data between instances in sync, again, either one way or two way very easily. And you can do this between multiple instances. You could have one producer and have multiple consumers. So say I want to take my incident table and replicate it and keep it in sync to test and dev. And it's practically real time. I mean, I have gone save, switch tabs, it's updated. Like, well, okay, that's fast enough for me.
Yeah. That is pretty good.
Are there any other backup best practices you would consider other than what you just mentioned, Chuck?
Back up early, back up often.
Yeah.
I know it seems obvious, but if you're doing anything that is at risk, the first time that I test out the new features of source control, you bet I'm going to upload I'm going to back up all my files first. I'm going to download XML on every table because I need to trust it once. So yes, I'm going to go through the painful exercise of backing up all my data, export it to XML, and then try and do a Delta load. So we'll see what happens. I'll let you know. Generally, the rest of the backups, you generally don't need to worry about backups. That's what you pay us for, right? We're a cloud service provider. We make sure that your data is backed up for you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if I would necessarily consider IDR a backup option because, I don't know. Would you actually? I mean, I'm trying to think. Just because the sort, especially if it's bidirectional, you wouldn't do that.
Right. If backup implies you're going to need to restore at some point. Mm-hmm. If you've got a read-only instance that nobody ever modifies, sure, you could consider it a backup and possibly restore off of there and go, oh, wait, there was this one record that I totally botched up. However, remember, it's syncing that in practically real time. So if you scratch it in production and it goes, boom, who's all my consumers? You get this. They got it. So what are you going to restore? The scratched copy? Right. I'm with Kreg. I wouldn't consider IDR really a backup mechanism.
Yeah.
So when should we expect to see things like the common services data model for Paris out on the doc site? It's not out there yet. We've got it up for Orlando. But how long does it typically take to see documentation like that get updated?
That should have been updated immediately when we did the early access stuff on Friday. I'm kind of surprised that it's not. So there is, if you go to the Orlando page, there's a little speech bubble part of the way down the page. Click that, leave feedback, and say, "Hey, when do we get this for When do we get this for Paris?" So I'm shocked that it's not, because generally they start a release with everything from the previous release. It's like, let's clone this and now start modifying it for the new stuff and adding and subtracting and doing deltas on that. So I think we have hit the top of the hour, gentlemen. Thank you. If we didn't get to your answers, apologies. We will answer them offline and post them back to the community post for TechNow episode 77. Look for them there. Thank you to our drummer, Kreg Steppe, and our bassist, Jeremy Duncan. I'm your lead singer, and this has been the TechNow Band. Good night, Internet. We love you.
Yeah.